discussing. Aditya, do you have a query? Ruling party is backing up the vice president. It should not want the ruling party to remove vice president. That can be done through bringing a resolution in Rajya Sabha. You know this. But why would the ruling party do that? It's its own vice president they have. People are not removed very easily. Okay, no issues. So we were discussing JS Mill. Small point we need to wrap up JS Mill with this small point. This we have seen the scholar of abstract individualism. This thing we have seen already. Now from here onwards, यहाँ तक हमने देखा था ना? No, not same. Achita, they are not same. Emoluments are something different. Like you are entitled to house rent allowance. That would be emolument. That would not be the salary that gets accounted to your. There's an entire paid structure for government employees. Even for private sector employees, there is a concept called CTC, the cost to company. That is salary plus emoluments. यहाँ तक हमने देख लिया था. इसके आगे की कहानी हम करते हैं, and then we'll move to the next thinker for today, Karl Marx. All of you can see the slide. Fine. Just quickly wrap up Mr. Mill, and then move to the next thinker for today. Barker has criticized Mill, prophet of empty liberty, he calls him, and why? Because Barker is a positive liberal. You know what is positive liberalism? Positive liberal talk about the intervention of state in certain areas. He says that the understanding that liberty implies non-intervention by state is a hollow idea, because in the absence of positive liberty, there can be a complete situation of chaos. That's why Barker says when any liberal who claims to be a liberal talks about liberalism and does not endorse positive liberty, he is a prophet of empty liberty. You know what is positive liberty. All of you know this, no doubts in this. But do I need to explain it again? Because I think 2-3 times I've already explained what is positive liberty. The area where the state has to intervene, right? Yes, I think that's amply clear to all of you. I mean, you can explain this to anyone now. What is positive liberty? Now, again, what more he says, Mill is unable to defend his ideas. Why is he so? There are very few actions which can be considered as purely self-regarding. Again, we saw it in the last class also, that there is no strict separation between self-regarding action and other regarding action, because we are all living into societies which are very closely knit up. People are interacting with each other more than ever. So what actually is a self-regarding action? Those set of actions are actually very small. The set is already very small. Most of the actions can be regarded as other regarding. In reality, there is no scope for man to enjoy liberty. There is nothing called absolute liberty which you can enjoy. State has to intervene. And also self-regarding action are hardly numbered. They can be counted on fingers. So those areas, which is very sacrosanct, where state does not intervene regarding self-regarding action, is actually a shrinking space. Okay, that's actually a very shrinking space is what he's saying. Mill is inconsistent with his views regarding state intervention. Even in self-regarding action, he gives an example of man crossing the bridge. I've written it already, explained in the class because I did that. How many of you remember that story? A man crossing the bridge, and then he said the bridge is damaged. He might fall in the river. How many of you did not hear this? How many of you were absent in the class during that day? Nihar Vedala was absent. Okay, Nihar, I'll explain it. All of you listen. Mill says that the state should not intervene in self-regarding action. What is self-regarding action? Whose impact falls on me? Okay, those actions whose impact and effect completely fall on the individual, not on any second person. Right? If you're smoking, you're damaging yourself, but because of passive smoking, others are also being facing the pollutants that's coming out of your smoke. So smoking is not a self-regarding action. However, if you consume poison, it's a self-regarding action. So Mill gives a story. He says, when a man is crossing a bridge and that bridge is broken and is unaware of it, and he might fall in and drown in the river, should the state intervene and tell him that bridge is broke? Should not. Now here he says that state can intervene, and if the man says, I know it's broken, I want to go, state should say, okay, you can go, because his being unaware endangers the individual. This is where the state needs to intervene. Once the officer concerned says that the bridge is broken, you should not cross this, what Mill is saying, that if a man is crossing a bridge and he's unaware that the bridge is broken, then the state needs to intervene. State needs to intervene and tell him that you should not cross this broken bridge. You might drown yourself in the river. If still he insists that no, I want to cross, I know it's broken, but still I want to go ahead, state will permit that. This is what his bridge example is. That's it. Now on democracy, what he says, consideration on representative government. Mill argues that a form of representative democracy is the best ideal form of government. Representative democracy is what we are having in India. We elect our representatives. Okay, we elect our representatives on our behalf. They sit in the legislative bodies, in assemblies, in state and parliament at the center, and they make laws for us. That is what is representative form of government. He considers it to be the best. Mill thinks that representative democracy is best when it is best because it best satisfies two criteria of all good government. What two criteria representative government democracy satisfies? Government is good insofar as it promotes the common good. Remember, he's a utilitarian. So he will always talk about the common good, where this is conceived of as promoting the moral, intellectual and active traits of its citizens. Okay, common good it is promoting, where moral, intellectual of the individual is being enshrined, active traits, the good traits of citizens are being protected and worked upon. So this is how his common good work. And government is good insofar as it makes effective use of institutions and the resources of its citizens to promote the common good. Now, what are these state institutions? Like administration, police machinery, all these things. So what they can do, they can also be used, the education system, they can be used, all these state institutions, the resources can be used to promote the common good, is what Mill is saying here. Okay, Mill believes, and that cannot survive everywhere. People need to be fit for democracy. Here you need to write one thing, that democracy. So Mill is saying that democracy is not a form of government that is suited for everyone. Okay, it's not a form of government that suits everyone. People need to be fit for democracy. He did not support democracy for people living in colonies. So he's saying that democracy is not for colonies. Colonies, you know, Asia and Africa. He was an employee of East India Company for a brief period. He was also working with House of Commons of the British Parliament. So I told you that there is this element of elitism in Mills. He is having also showing some traits of racism because of this thing. He does not support democracy for people living in colonies. He thinks that these people are unevolved creatures. They are not fit for democracy. Now, why he thinks so? Because he considers a benevolent despotism. What is benevolent despotism? Any idea? Any idea what is benevolent despotism? See, despotism means good tyranny, a good monarch, ideal king. So he says that despotism is a legitimate form of government for barbarians. So we, the colonial people, are barbarians. So far, the end can be their improvement. There here means the barbarians. So it justifies despotism for colonies, saying that colonies can only be governed by a benevolent despot, a good monarch. And if they are working for the upliftment of these barbarians, the ends are good, then despotism is always justified, is what he's saying. There are prerequisites to democracy. Country must have a civic culture. Now, colonies like this. Colonies are, Asia and Africa at that time, he used to say, are uncivic people, barbarians, very gross. Okay, they don't have manners. They are complete idiots. So we will bring them democracy. Gandhi and Nehru are passionate Democrats compared to Mill, who is a reluctant Democrat. Now, what Gandhi and Nehru said: universal adult franchise. India gave it in the first election, 1951-52. India believed that democracy, when given to everyone, will bring more democracy. Okay, we will make. They thought people should be made fit for democracy. And Mill thinks people should be fit for democracy. See the difference. Should be made fit and should be fit. You have already achieved that stage. Then you get democracy. And here Gandhi and Nehru, and under their guidance, India is saying that people should be made fit for democracy by giving them democracy. Did you understand this difference between Gandhi, Nehru and Mills? No questions here. On women. His views on women are very liberating. He says that all form of slavery have been abolished. How do you make people fit? Okay, you make people fit when you make them participate in democratic process. Okay, when you make them participate in democratic process, then they become more suitable for democracy. It's not like a despot will make them civic or a monarch will make them worthy. When they participate in democratic process, when they realize what they have got, then by exercising their democratic rights, they become fit for democracy. No one teaches them. Democracy is something that you practice every day. Rights, democratic process, everything. When you go out to vote, it's a right, right? But when you have viable exercise, viable options when you are voting, that is what democracy at work is. Now coming to the women position, he says that all forms of slavery has been abandoned except for slavery of women. And further he adds that subjugation of women is almost universal. It happens everywhere. That is why it appears to be natural, but it cannot be justified. So it is so rampant. It is so, it is so much palpable, inevitable everywhere, that it appears to be a justified norm, but it's not a justified norm. Okay, it appears to be natural, however, it cannot be justified. Mill supports demand for right to vote for women and supports greater presence of women in public sphere. So he is all for women empowerment. How? Women must be accorded. Remember, he is into those times when England did not give voting rights to women. Okay, restricted rights. There was no concept of universal adult franchise in Western countries or USA for that matter. India did it very soon as we became independent. So he's seeing that women need to be more into public sphere and right to vote must be given to women. Now this will motivate men to work better. See, he's saying this because men will come out of their complacency. They will face stiff competition from women. So it will motivate them to work better. Don't take it otherwise. Next point you can take it otherwise. Men will also behave in a more civilized way, so it's better for society also. See, with women around, men will be behaving in a more civilized way. This is a fact actually. Something happens to men when they are in company of women. Their behavior is impacted. They become kind of, you can see it on yourself also. Maybe all guys sitting here, the way you talk to your guy friends, and when there is a girl in your circle, then of course you are little less rudimentary, right? So he has generalized this, of course, that men will behave in a more civilized way when they are working with women, and that will make a better society, and they will come out of their complacency that women are giving them stiff competition, so they need to work better. This is what Mill says. Any question anyone has? Anything? See, for colonies, he's saying he's not paradoxical here. For colonies, all he's saying that colonial people are not suited for it. Okay, colonial people are not suited for democracy. Try to understand this. So whether it's a man or a woman, none of them are suited for democracy. Are you understanding? So now see whom we have to discuss now. The name of the thinker is Karl Marx. Yes, Jay Smith finished now. I'll give you a brief introduction about Karl Marx. Karl Marx is a passing reference will come. Passing reference of thinkers will keep coming and we'll study ideology. So Karl Marx is actually a very influential thinker and he has made a great impact. So much so that today the world stands divided between his classification of bourgeois and proletariat. Okay, he has made a very big impact on political thought, political science, even on sociological impacts. So there is a discourse, there is a narrative, the Marxist discourse, and it is so convincing. It is so, it is said, if you are not a Marxist in your 20s, then you have no spirit. And if you are still a Marxist in your 30s, you have no brains. Okay, which means young people, vulnerable people, people who are full of energy, people who are kind of having all the enthusiasm and energy in the world are prone to be Marxist, particularly the young generation in their 20s. So that's why it said if you are not a 20s, you have no spirit, and if you are still a Marxist in your 30s, you have no brains. Okay, and this guy, what was his name? Carter guy, US president. How can I forget? He said, no, not Jimmy Carter. Achha, I will tell you the name exactly. He said, a Marxist is one who follows Marx, and a non-Marxist is one who understands Marx. Okay, so which is a way he's taking a dig at Marxist by saying that anyone who understands Marx cannot be a Marxist. Okay, so how do you become a non-Marxist? When you understand Marx in totality. So let us see for ourselves. Let us see for ourselves. Let us make an attempt, because few thinkers are very, very important. Now I'll do my experiment. My experiments with truth. You can see him. Now I was telling you that few of the thinkers are very important. He is one of them. This guy is very important. Then you have to study about, after the arrival of Donald Trump, her books are selling like hotcakes in USA. She is very important. Then feminism again is very important. It's an offshoot. It's a branch of Marxism. It emanates from Marxism. Environmentalism is another very important offshoot of Marxism. So these things have, he has given I told you, he has given an entire new discourse to us. Let us try to understand what he wants to tell us. Whatever doubt you have, you can send me in the chat. But first, I would say, because you see, he has tried to bring, and one more thing. Before I start, few things I would like to tell you. That just a minute. There is something called socialism. Okay, socialism is there in our political ideology part, what we call socialism, and Marxism is also there in our political ideology part. So both these things, what I have done here is that because we have to study socialism and Marxism in our syllabus as ideology. Okay, and then we have to study Karl Marx as a thinker also, and both these things are interrelated. Okay, in fact, socialism is the penultimate stage of Marxism. Yeah, question anyone? Just a minute. They are not the same. That's what I'm telling you. Oh, that's what I'm telling you. They're not same. It's the penultimate. Penultimate ka matlab second last. Okay, but socialists are before Marx, and they are called early socialists. Now, Marx will call them utopians. What is utopian? Too good to be true. Fairy tales. Cinderella. Okay. So Marx says that these socialists are nothing but utopians. They know nothing. They are saying, yeah, imaginary. Right? So he will not have very good regards for them. And then he will say that I will bring scientific socialism. I'll correct the anomalies of early socialists. Okay, I'll correct the anomalies of early socialists. I'll correct their mistakes. And because they are utopians, they cannot correct anything. You got it? So he says that socialism is a kind of thing, it's a good thing, but these socialists had no idea how to bring the good things. I'm correcting it and I'll bring it. Now, all of you made this brief sketch, or you want to note. If you don't want to note, then we can continue later on. Your call, completely your call. I can rub it? Okay then. Now, please see here. Marx is the first thinker who has focused on poor perspective and elaborated on the exploitation, which we are seeing here, that he is the first thinker who is focusing on what? He is focusing on the poor perspective and exploitation. Of course, exploitation is always of poor by the rich. So he's the first one who has worked on great details about these things. Marx is materialist. Why we are calling him materialist? Because he believes in matter, and he thinks that ideas. He's not an idealist because he thinks that ideas generate false consciousness. So he's a materialist. He thinks that ideas generate false consciousness. Matter is the real thing. Whatever change is happening is happening in the material world, not in the ideal or ideas. He is against religion. He compares religion to, opium. He calls religion as hope of the hopeless. It's the hope of the hopeless. He is against capitalism. Of course, Marxists are anything. It's an antithesis to capitalism. Okay. He is against democracy. Now, why he is against democracy? Because, I'll answer the question, because democracy is Democracy is an instrument in the hands of the capitalist. Capitalists are molding democracy every time. That's why he says that democracy is not a good thing. It is controlled by capitalism. Capitalism controls democracy. He says that he will bring scientific socialism, okay, and he calls early socialists as utopians. Why early socialists are utopians? Because they have no understanding of capitalism and its program of actions. Early socialists had no understanding of what the capitalist process and the programs and the actions that capitalism would bring. So socialism can come only through what he's saying, a violent revolution. So unless you kind of endorse this, there will be no revolution. Capitalism will never go if you don't use violence. There has been no birth without blood and bloodshed. Okay, can there be a birth without bloodshed? Can there be a birth without blood? Even with most sophisticated surgeries, of course there will be some loss of blood during the birth of any child, even in animal species, right? So that's why he says that the new ideas, the socialist ideas that have to emanate, they will never come in the absence of violence. So Karl Marx has kind of all the years, he is in favor of violence. Okay, what is he doing? He is not mindless violence, but violence to bring a revolution that would overthrow capitalism. Violence that would bring revolution and overthrow the capitalist. That's what he's saying. This is the entire theory of Karl Marx. Nitya, I'll answer this. Why he's against religion? I'll answer this. Please wait. It's on your. No, not like that. No. You're what you have assumed that Nitya has written that, for example, only people from a particular religion was allowed to become a capitalist, etc. No, that's not the case at all. We'll see it. Or you want me to answer it now? What to do? It's already on slides. So please wait. Now there is a guy called Hegel, a German philosopher called Hegel. Now Hegel, what Marx is saying, let us try to understand this thing. It can come in your exam for sure. Now please listen carefully. I'll give you all the chance to ask questions. I have never discouraged questions from you, but when I teach Karl Marx, I do not encourage questions. Please try to understand. You listen to me. Like one question Nitya had now. In our course of discussions, your answers will come. Still, if doubt remains, you can always ask me. But first, we have to understand this complicated creature, this complicated ideology. It has confused the entire world. Do you know? After the advent of Marxism, world is either pro or anti-Marx. So please try to understand him. He is bringing science into socialism. So we need to understand him. Now, regarding Hegel, what he's saying, let us try to understand. I'll write something. Hegel was standing on his head. I made him stand on his feet, which means Hegel was up, doing Sirsasana. So he made him stand on his feet, upside down, right? Why? Because Hegel believes in dialectical idealism. Now, this idealism will be replaced by materialism by Karl Marx. He will make dialectic idealism as dialectic materialism. Now, don't ask me what is dialectics, what is idealism. You have already told you. Materialism also, you know. We will see what is dialectics. First, he is inspired by Hegel's dialectical method. Actually, this method, this was first time used by Socrates, the guru of Plato. Ancient Greece, remember our first thinker, Plato, and then Aristotle. So Socrates has used dialectical method up there 4th, 5th century BC in Greece. Okay, what it is I am about to explain you. But Hegel talks about dialectic idealism. Now, what is dialectic idealism? Ideas are the center of his philosophy. Hegel is an idealist. Marx is saying, do away with idealism. You are standing on your head. You need to replace idealism with materialism. Remove idea with matter. Then our thing will come into progress. Noted it, all of you? Taken up this. Real is rational is a famous statement of Hegel that real is rational. What is real is rational? He is saying that anything that can be rationally explained through reason is real. Like Plato, Hegel is an idealist. He says reality is what can be understood by reason. So if it cannot be understood by reason, it's not real. If you cannot apply reason to understand a particular phenomena or a concept, that's not real. That's imaginary. That's something which is Not true. Idea can be understood by use of reason. Hence, idea is real. That is his argument. Whose argument? Hegel's argument. He's saying that idea can be understood by the use of reason. Therefore, ideas are real. You can apply an idea, thing can happen, and that something which can materialize, it can actually happen. Then that is real. That's his perception. We need not agree with it, but that is how Hegel has arrived at his own theories and conclusions. State is the march of God on earth. See, there cannot be a bigger statement. There cannot actually be a bigger statement which justifies absolute state. Did earlier thinker who talk about, did Hobbes say this, that state is the march of God on earth? No one said it. Hegel is saying that state, which means you must abide by all orders of state. Do not show your dissent. Do not contradict or confront the state. State is the march of God on earth. Okay, you understand how this extreme form of absolute state, what can this result into? Autocratic form of government, totalitarian form of government, dictatorship. Mussolini will say the same thing. There is nothing beyond state. There is nothing other than state. Everything that is a state. How is it different from state is the march of God on earth? Mussolini, Italian fascist leader, right? So Hegel, though an idealist, he takes a very kind of autocratic position when it comes to justifying the role of state. State has the character of God. Okay. Now, what is dialectics? It was given by Socrates. It's a process by which our beliefs get converted into knowledge. How does our belief get converted into knowledge? When we reason with our beliefs. I have my belief, you have your belief, we both reason it out, we get the knowledge. Some meaningful conclusion come out of it. Now, what is Hegel's dialectical method? This I need to explain it. Now, listen here and listen carefully and see what I'm making. There is something called thesis. Okay, and this thesis has some inherent contradictions in it, which means it's not a perfect state. What is thesis? It's a situation, it's a phenomena, it's an ideology, anything it can be. A stage, a situation, a phenomena. Don't get confused. You can put it anything. Anything is a thesis, but it's not perfect because it has certain inherent contradiction within it. Is it all right? समझ आया thesis? उसके अंदर में inherent contradictions है. It has limitations within it. क्या होगा? What will happen next? Now, because of these inherent contradictions, the next step will come. That would be antithesis. याद दिखा है ना? Thesis से antithesis आ गया. Now, this antithesis, this is stage 2. This is stage 1. So, antithesis is better than thesis, right? Because some inherent contradictions have been removed here. Some limitations have been eliminated in the antithesis. Still, it is not perfect. Okay, so now what will happen? Thesis and antithesis will combine to form synthesis. Stage 1. Listen, if you have not understood, see here again. Stage 2, stage 3. This thing had inherent contradictions. So because of those inherent contradictions, it became antithesis. But still, this part was not perfect. And some element of thesis was still there. Most of it became antithesis. This one is better than the previous one. It is still not the best. It's only better than thesis. So they both interact, they come together and give rise to synthesis. Is it all right? Antithesis is at the next stage from thesis. Because thesis has certain limitations, therefore antithesis came. It's better than thesis, however, it is not the best. That is, yes, thesis, antithesis will also have some contradictions, but less than thesis. Interact as in they come together. We are interacting, right? I'll give example, please. First, you understood this? I'll give all the example. See, I'll not end class today before explaining this dialectics to you. Only then we will be in a position to understand Marxism. Yeah, this is the entire base. Should I say it again? Okay, see, don't worry, don't write anything for now. And now look here, and look here carefully. This is stage 1. This stage had inherent contradictions. If this term is becoming problematic for you, you can just write it. This stage had its own limitations. Every stage, every situation has certain limitation. Every stage in history had certain limitation. Okay. So that is why, because of this inherent contradiction, it got transformed into what is called antithesis. Now this is better than thesis. Second stage is better than the first stage. Some of, not all, again, some of inherent contradictions have been removed. Not all. All ho gaya, then it is best. But some still remain. Now, some part of thesis is still intact. Most of it has become antithesis. Why? Because of the presence of inherent contradictions in thesis. Now, some part which was still intact, it interacts with the new version and gives rise to the third form, third situation, third phenomena, synthesis. So, in order of contradictions, we can say that, or not contradictions, in order which one is better amongst all of three, we can say synthesis is better than antithesis, which is better than thesis. Any problem till here? See, do not apply your brain, just see, try to understand what is dialectics. जिनको problem है वो question पूछ लो, and please यही जो मैंने बताया, whatever I have taught you here, इससे ही पूछो आप please. Anyone having even 1 point problem, feel free to ask please. Achita, did you understand? Or Krishna, Vishnu, Sumana, Anirudh, Anu, Aditya, Shah, Nihar, Nithya, Ram, Charan, Akash, Sahana, Sam, Santosh, Sarat, Shashank, Shreya, Shreyas, Sabya, Venkat, Vishnu. Till now, no problem at all? Good, 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 very good. Now wait, now see what happens. Till now, what we have learned, that this process becomes this, and then these third process emerges from this and this. This is 2, this is 1, and synthesis is any day better than antithesis, is better than thesis in these three things, right? But synthesis is still having contradictions. It might be best among these three, but it is not absolute best. Amongst thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, any day synthesis is best. But only among these three, it is not a absolute best. So what will happen now? Now see what will happen. Thesis became antithesis, and they both became synthesis, but it is still having limitations or inherent contradictions. So as a consequence of these limitations and these inherent contradictions, synthesis will again convert into thesis. Thesis will again convert into antithesis. Both of them will again convert into synthesis. If there is any element of contradiction here, it will again become thesis, then antithesis, then synthesis. Does it remind you of your nuclear fission reaction, the chain reaction? Right? So until you put the control rods, the cadmium and boron rods, which will absorb 2 neutrons, right? So it will not be a controlled fission reaction. It can become an atom bomb. Boom. So now what? Where will this process end? Where will synthesis stop bringing thesis, stop becoming thesis? As long as vicious circle of poverty, unemployment, population explosion, right? More children. You know what Professor Dhanwantari said? Rich get richer and poor get children. Isn't he right? The ex-Union Minister, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, he asked people that don't watch poor people should sleep early, else they will keep producing children. This came from Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad when he was the Union Home Minister during Manmohan Singh Ji's regime. Dhanwantari is saying rich get richer and poor get children. Very revered economist. So yes, it can remind you of your vicious circle also. Now again, back to our Marxist discussion. Now, when will this synthesis stop becoming thesis? So जब तक इस synthesis में ये होगा limitation या inherent contradiction, as long as synthesis is having even a point, even iota of inherent contradiction, it will keep becoming thesis. When will this inherent contradiction or limitation stop? When synthesis will result of interaction of antithesis and thesis leading to synthesis. This we know now. So when this synthesis will result into ideal communist state, then all inherent contradictions will be gone and eliminated. When a synthesis results in ideal communist state, then there is no inherent contradiction. I'm repeating. When synthesis results into ideal communist state, then this is a synthesis which was formed by interaction of thesis and antithesis. Now we were seeing that because synthesis also had some limitations, so it again became thesis. It again began the synthesis chain reaction was happening and happening. But there will be a time when synthesis will become what would be synthesis? Ideal communist state. You can equate this with synthesis. At some point of time in future, synthesis will be ideal communist state, which will have no inherent contradictions. नहीं आया समझ? Okay, forget. कितनों को नहीं आया? जल्दी बताओ. How many of you did not understand this? Come on, quickly. All of you understood it. Are you serious? अब repeat करने से you will not understand. How you will understand? I know. See how you will understand. Now, it was the idea of Marx, not Hegel. Hegel says dialectic says thesis, synthesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Then again synthesis. But Marx is ending final synthesis as ideal communist state. How it will not have contradictions, that we'll see. I'll give you an analogy, okay? Because there is no such example. History has not given us any ideal communist state till now. Then how can I give you an example? Karl Marx स्वयं नहीं दे पाएंगे अगर आ गए, but कैसे आएंगे? वो तो नहीं मानते religion को, reverse कैसे होगा? Okay, so I'll give you an analogy. Please listen now. Listen. Prelim, main, interview. God forbid, I take any example. There have been cases where people have missed selection from few marks. I personally know at least 2 people who have missed their final selection by 2 to 3 marks. They could not make it to merit list by 2 to 3 marks. So again prelims, again mains, again interview, again you are not selected by maybe 10 marks. Again prelims, again mains, again interview, and this process keeps on happening until you are selected, you become an IAS. This is something what Karl Marx would have called ideal communist state. There are no inherent contradictions here. Now you don't have to appear, you don't have to read the Hindu every day, you don't have to read Yojana, know the Hindu, don't have to listen to my recordings, don't have to go through your notes. All contradictions are removed. You have attained Marx's ideal communist state. अब आया समझ में? Now you must have understood. Sam के दिल पे लग गई बात. Let me read your chat. I know. This analogy will make you understand. So unless you are selected, there is some limitation. Even if you miss it, मैं view क्यों बोल रहा हूँ? Even if anyone misses it with 1 mark. No, usually people who miss by 10 to 10 marks, they are getting into what is called reserve list. अब ये सब क्या होता है? Don't ask me now. I don't even want you to think on these reserve list lines. We are not studying. We are not having these online classes in times of pandemic so that you think about reserve list. Okay. Reserve list is for someone who is having his last attempt. उसके पास अब attempt नहीं है और उसका selection 5-6 नंबर से रुक गया है. So there will be some people who will not join the services because they want to become IAS or IFS or IPS, the 3 most preferred service. Someone who got a rank 500, who is getting Indian Account and Audit or Indian Postal Services or somewhere next or DENG, he will not prefer to join if it's his first or second attempt. So what he will do? He will not join. There will be 5 to 6 people like that. Every year there are almost 10 to 12 people, maybe 15 to 20. So all these people who miss by 10 to 15 marks, they get a call that you can join because some rankers have opted to be out of service. They will be appearing next year. So if there were 1,000 seats, now the seats are 1,020 because 20 of them did not join. Again, don't think about these things. So even if you miss by 1 mark, there is some limitation in your preparation. Again, the same. It's a very torturous process. And my personal experience tells me, both as an aspirant and now as a faculty, that anyone who even misses, who appears for the interview, he almost thinks that he is an officer. Okay. I know a person who started wearing only formals. After he faced the interview, he was never appearing in t-shirts. He was wearing formals always. And now comes the result. You are missing by such a small margin that hits hard. Believe you me, that hits hard. And After 2 days is your prelims exam. So UPSC आपको रोने का भी मौका नहीं देती है. Again they are sharpening their pencils. Okay, again they are darkening the circles in some sarkari school, sitting in those seats, right? So this is what happens here. Now, once you are selected, there will be no inherent contradictions. You don't have to undergo the same torturous journey. You will be a teacher again. Okay, I'll come to it, Nitya. He's a materialist, but he talks about ideal state. Why? I'll tell this. Don't worry, I'll tell this. First, you understood this thing. Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. People often ask me, "Sir, ये क्या है?" मैं कहता हूँ, "This is a situation. Thesis, better stage. Antithesis, then better the antithesis. Synthesis, still not the best. Again, they will interact. They will form thesis. This process will go on and on and on until ideal communist state will be achieved." All right. Now you see what will happen. Hegel says that history is a dialectical movement of ideas. Okay. Now Hegel has not talked about ideal communist state. It is Karl Marx who talks about ideal communist state. But what Hegel says, he says that it's a dialectical movement. History is nothing but a dialectical movement. That there man used to live in caves, early man. Now he comes to community life. You study your ancient history. आपके syllabus से बता रहा हूँ. Gram, Gramini, Vis, Janpad, Mahajanpad, right? 16 such Mahajanpads during the time of Buddha and Mahavira in 6th to 5th century BC. No, real is national is by Hegel, not by Marx. Please listen to it. We can get these factual questions once and for all. Aditya, it's a factual stuff. I'll explain it. There is nothing to be understood who said that quote. Okay, but please try to understand this thing now. Thesis, antithesis is a part of dialectics, which was used by Plato, Socrates, then Plato. Hegel is using, Marx is using it. Marx, ultimate synthesis, the final synthesis where any further development would stop, is the ideal communist state. He is not the inventor of this triology. He is not the inventor of dialectics. He is just fitting his examples or situations, his theories into dialectics. Can I move now from here? Now see, he has given 3 laws of dialectics. Who? Hegel. Unity of opposites. Every idea has its opposite idea. That is why I told you, thesis becomes antithesis because of some inherent contradiction. So he's saying that every idea has an opposite idea. There is something that will contradict what is already present in a given situation, right? Do not try to fit your examples into it. Don't do that, for now at least. Listen to what Hegel was saying. Negation of negation. During movement. Now, what is this movement? The second law says, during movement means the dialectic process is happening. Okay, dialectics is happening. History is progressing. From 5th century or from prehistoric era, we are living into 2020. So this is movement. Negativities get eliminated and higher truth emerges, and this process continues until there is a contradiction. Okay. So each stage in history, according to Hegel's second law, which says negation of negation, each stage in history will be better than the previous one because the negativities of previous stage will be eliminated and the next stage will have some higher truth which will prevail. All right till here? I'm coming to the remaining part also, but all right till here? Progression is happening in history. Okay. Progression is happening in history and this process is continuing. Progression, and then again comes a contradictory stage. Third law is more simple. Quantity changes into quality. If change takes place up to a certain level, then it is quantitative. But when it crosses the limit, it becomes qualitative. Now you see, I can explain third law. See, I'll explain all the laws. I think you have understood the first two. What is third law? Suppose a hungry man. Why hungry? Because he is poor. He is unable to feed himself 2 times a day, full meal. There are such people in our country, unfortunately. Still there are some people. Of course, the number has reduced, but still there are poor people in our country, sadly so, who do not get. It's not something that would make us happy, but there are some people. Now, society is progressing, economy is developing, government is making attempts. So these hungry and poor men start getting opportunities. They get some work and now they start earning. So what would happen to someone who used to sleep with empty stomach? If he starts earning, the first thing he'll do is to eat, right? First duty would be to eat to the fullest. कहता इसको ठूस के खाएगा, right? यहाँ तक खाना ले आएगा, and he will eat. He will, if he was having one roti, he will now have 4 rotis, so that his hunger vanishes. That would be his priority when he starts earning. Now, once he is sure that he does not have to think about his next meal, then he will think about probably some clothes, some good clothes. Then he will do some savings. He will think about a better accommodation. Right now, he has a house. He has a good set of clothes. His basic necessities are now being taken care. Basic necessities mean food, shelter, clothing. Now, what will he do? He cannot eat more than 4 rotis. It's not like if he was earning somewhere around 10,000 and now he is earning 1 lakh. So he will not eat 40 roti. Quantity will increase up to a certain extent. There is a threshold for quantitative change. After that, it would be qualitative change. Like, some people, they eat biscuit. Then this biscuit transforms into biscuit. Then this biscuit transforms into cookies. Are you understanding it? Some people have chai. Then they will have black tea. Then they will have latte. Is this how you spell it? This is what? This is qualitative change, right? This is qualitative change. It's not quantitative change. You used to use 1 packet of biscuit. Now you're having 1 packet of biscuit. Now you are having 1 packet of cookies. You used to have 2 cups of chai. Now you are having 2 cups of black tea. Now you are having 2 mugs of latte. Right? This is what third law is. Quantitative change up to a certain threshold, up to a certain extent. After that, the change will be qualitative. Did you understand this? From chai ki tapri to straight to the Starbucks. He will now have pizzas, right? He will now have continental, pasta, everything, right? So quantity is changing into quality. You understood 3 laws of his Hegel, Dialecticals? No doubts here. You understand what is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis? When will synthesis stop becoming thesis? When Karl Marx ideal communist state will arrive. Now another thing. Now these are the Marxist gentlemen. That's Marx, that's Hegel, that's Lenin, that's Stalin, and that's Chairman Mao Zedong. Now I'll tell you something. In India, how Marxism has come up in different places. See, the idea, should I discuss? You can just ignore the heading. I want to write here, that's why I'm using it. You can draw this chart if you can write one more name, and then there is, so these are the variation of Marx. Okay, there are many more countries. We can even call North write about North Korea, but I can't recall who founded it. Not the current one, that handsome hunk, not King Jong-Chu. Someone else, I cannot recall. His only his family member only. Okay, so this is how Marx has done wonders. And you know what Marx said? He said this: at least I am not a Marxist, because you see the various interpretations. Now all these people are after he died. This happened. This was the first time, 1917. This USSR have this what they called Bolshevik Revolution, and this guy passed away. He died in 1883. So for first time, when his theories became practical, were in 1917. But even during his lifetime, he was not very fond of the interpretations that people were doing of his own theories. That's why he said that at least I am not a Marxist. Now you see, steps of Marx. Let us leave here, because now you will not understand the steps of Marxism. We are running short of time. Tomorrow we'll finish Karl Marx. Okay. And one more thing. I told you that in political ideologies, we have to study Marxism again and also socialism again. So what I'll do is I'll teach it here itself. Because anyways, in Western political thinker, Karl Marx is a very important one. I told it to you in the start of the session itself. And Marxism again is an umbrella ideology for feminism, environmentalism, okay. And socialism is a second last stage of Marxism. So anyways, we have to study these things in our ideologies part. So why not see it here itself, okay? Because they are very related. They are completely related to each other. So when they are completely related to each other, let us finish them at once. We'll skip that part in ideology. It's not like our time will be saved, right? Because we will be studying similar things together. Are you understanding it? Any doubt anyone has? Quickly ask. Any doubt? Yes, Vishnu asked. Have you studied this? Rats? See, I'll tell you. SCO is Shanghai Cooperation, right? And it was founded. China is the founder member. China and Russia and other few countries are the founding members. And India was trying to be a part of SCO, but India was initially not admitted to SCO. Pakistan was also trying to be a part of SCO. Yes, they were first given observer status, and then at the insistence of Russia, India became a part of SCO, and same year Pakistan also became a part of SCO, because China was like that. If India is being made a member, Pakistan will also be made a member. Now, people often wonder how come Pakistan be a part of something that has rats in it, that is a regional anti-terrorist structure, because they are the one who are fueling terrorism. Now, terrorism for us is Pakistan. For Indians, terrorism emanates from Pakistan, because India is not facing terror threats from Palestine or any other radical Islamic outfit as much as we are facing directly from Pakistan, right? So India's interest does not converge with Chinese or Pakistani interest. Now we are witnessing a shift in world order for now. Okay, people in India are not having a obsession with Pakistan. Currently, we have turned it towards China. Okay, post this all Galwan Valley confrontation that has happened. So most of the countries are siding with India. China is facing a very tough time both within and outside the country. Pakistan and China is friends with such rogue states like North Korea and Pakistan and few other small countries which depend on Chinese debt trap. Okay, this big web that Chinese have all tried to bring. So Pakistan is a part because of Chinese insistence. Pakistan has its own utility. The location of Pakistan, through it it shares border with Afghanistan, and USA needed it. There is a history to it, almost universally recognized as a rogue state. There has been no UN resolution to this effect, but most of the countries are like, even in UNO, last week it got a nice rapping on its knees, because they were trying to bring India wrongly. They were trying to frame India wrongly. World cannot ignore India. India is having a biggest of the market. Still, demographic dividend, highest number of under 35 people in the world. You know this. 70% of India is under 35. So that brings a lot of opportunity to us. And the market that we have, plus the deep-rooted democracy and pluralistic ideas that we have shared. Okay, we have hardly been an aggressor. Yes, we have hardly been an aggressor. We have given world the likes of, India is now, having much respect in the world. Not particularly because of the Prime Minister Modi, but because of the effect, the history to it, and not after independence only. Yoga and Ayurveda, Modi didn't bring it, but of course he popularized it. Commitment to world peace via NAM, non-alignment. Okay, commitment to world peace through UN security forces, condemning terrorism in all its form, condemning colonial approach most of the times when it suited us. Like we did criticize America's occupation of Vietnam, but not Russia's aggression towards Poland, because of course, pragmatic reasons. So overall, India has a good track record. Scientifically, we are doing good. Our satellites are launching France and American satellites in this space. In Crimea crashes also, India did not have much role there. But yeah, India voice was heard there. The likes of Palestine and Israel asked India that, the Palestinian president told our late foreign minister, Sushma Swaraj, that you are the one who can solve our differences. You are friends with both of us. So because India is facing these things, India is trying to mold the world opinion into its favor to a very hostile China, which is acting as a thread for all the democratic countries. Okay, these are mere slogans. What Vishnu you have written, this does not apply, because in reality, what you will see, China is a nuisance, creating nuisance for democratic democracies all across the world. Do you know what has happened in USA? There came a report by Senate. You understand what is Senate? The American Parliament. And they said that, can you hear me? They said, the American Senate said way back in 2019 February that American universities are receiving funds from China. Xi Jinping's daughter studied at Harvard. And since then, Xi Jinping had done massive fundings to the like of Harvard and Yale and everything. Professor Charles Lieber, remember this name. Google him and see for yourself. Professor Charles Lieber, chemistry professor in Harvard, was arrested by the FBI because he set up a lab in Wuhan and no one was aware of it in America. What happened from Wuhan, we all are aware of. So, Senate report says Bloomberg is one of the largest media houses of US. They say that American universities are receiving secret donations from China. And if America tries to act on it, freedom of speech will be endangered. Government will try to intrude into centers of excellence educational. Something like democracies have their own fault lines. There will never be everyone who will be satisfied in a democracy. They will have some confrontation, some resistance. China exploits these points in democracies. Have this three warfare doctrine. Those who have read Art of War will be aware of it. Okay. I have made a video on this, but that video is on Hindi. One of very popular channel in YouTube have published it. Leave it, don't see it. You can watch on my channel. I have discussed India and China, but that was purely academic stuff. I have not talked about the things that I have mentioned here. So yes, that is mere slogan which countries do when they gather at a platform. What happens remains to be seen yet. Okay, so let us meet tomorrow and discuss these remaining stuffs. More of Marxism tomorrow. I'm sending the PDF of the last thinker, J.S. Mill. Let us leave Karl Marx for today. I'm not sending any PDF. Tomorrow I'll send it when I'll finish it. Okay, take good care. Good night.